Hey there, it's Kelly, and I'm here with my dear friends and fellow astrologers, Cassandra and Alicia, and together we are the Water Trio. So we're back with another episode for December 10th, the week starting December 10th, running through until December 16th. So we're getting now into the very pointy end of the year and certainly into the middle of the month. What are you guys looking forward to this week?
Mercury back into Sagittarius.
Okay, why are you looking forward to this?
For this
Tell
reason,
us, Cass.
We'll laugh more. We'll laugh more.
So you can tell more funny jokes, huh?
So I can laugh at my own jokes a little bit more.
Love a Gemini.
So I can do more foot and mouth, which is always a good,
Excellent.
Body.
Yep.
And I'm also really looking forward to the Venus sextile Saturn aspect. I think that's a really underplayed, underrated, a great aspect. So those are the things I'm looking forward to. How about you, Alicia?
I'm really looking forward to that Venus sextile to Saturn too. I mean, the image that comes to mind there is the sweet young maiden that comes up and gives her grandfather a kiss on the cheek after he's, delivered some piece of wisdom. I really think it's going to give, old Father Time, Kronos, Saturn, that benefit of the sweetness that Venus really can bring. And yes, Venus is still in Scorpio in her happiest place. But, I feel like Saturn he's in his kingdom. He can really help her a bit right now and just help her kind of, come back to reality if she's delving too deep or digging too far into those Scorpio waters again. So, yeah.
Well, these are good things to look forward to. I do love a bit of Venus-Saturn action for sure. So that sextile is happening it's Sunday the 16th in Canada and the States. That'll actually be Monday the 17th for you guys in Australia, I think. The very end of the week. 9 degrees Scorpio to 9 degrees Capricorn. I like Venus-Saturn because it's a stabilizing energy. Saturn, makes things real. It doesn't always give you what you want, but you know that what kind of sticks with you through Venus-Saturn stuff is solid. It's got substance. It's got long-term potential. I do like Venus sextile Saturn too for that idea of coming together, like finding agreement, making commitments that are realistic or that can actually last. This is not pie in the sky, rose-colored glasses kind of relationship or agreement stuff. This is more meaty and, you can manifest it because it's real type of thing.
Totally. Yeah, I was just checking the astro data. It does actually happen on the 16th for us too. So it goes into the 16th and a bit into the 17th. So, but yeah, totally. I agree with what you said, Kel, about the agreements and things like that. And particularly in the signs that we're looking at here, Scorpio and Capricorn, it's kind of like, let's really nut out what those agreements are, maybe get a little bit of strategic moving forward. So as you said, it's not pie in the sky, let's just wing it. It's got which is a bit kind of like the astro weather that we're under, overall right now. So this is kind of like, let's really nut out maybe some details or work out how we're moving forward with something. And it's got that, stability, it's got some structure, and it's also got some honesty. So it might be about, look, this doesn't work for me, but how can we move forward with that? Working through, Venus can sometimes be really agreeable, but in Scorpio and with, the influence of Saturn, she might be a little bit more confident to kind of go, let's not do this, but maybe offering a suggestion of an alternative.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it is a very productive aspect. I think a lot can be done, and it's sort of weird that it's coming, like on a Sunday almost, because to me, that's an aspect I'd almost want in the workplace with me. So maybe it's one of those Sundays where you're either doing a bit of work on the weekend or you're actually just working quite hard for loved ones. I always think Venus in Scorpio is really good. Jodie Foster has Venus in Scorpio, and there's a quote in a blog post that I've written about her on my website where she talks about love people and stay beside them. And that's the idea of like with Venus in Scorpio, you show your love and you show your loyalty by just being there. And I think that'll be something really key this weekend. But the thing that I'm actually more excited about this weekend is Jupiter becoming visible again.
Yay!
So this is a little bit of a technical thing where when a planet is really close to the sun, it's hidden and its energy is certainly muted. But by the time we get to the 15th of December, Jupiter is now far enough from the sun. I think it's going to be about 15 degrees away. It'll be visible in the eastern sky. I think we double checked before we spoke, before we did in our pre-show chat. So you'll see, if you're up early, you'll see Jupiter before sunrise. But the key with Jupiter becoming visible is that it becomes more conscious. So whatever Jupiter in Sag has in store for you or wants from you, it becomes easier to start to figure out what that is once Jupiter becomes visible in the sky again. So it's not like a technical aspect per se, but it's just as a phase relationship that Jupiter is stepping into where we can see him going forward.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a really interesting week actually, because it does start out with the moon in Capricorn highlighting all that Saturn and that Pluto energy. So it will be that heaviness and hard work and focus and determination. But then the end of the week, as you're describing with that Jupiter and, the moon in Pisces, conjunct Neptune, there's going to be all this lovely, watery, dreamy, optimistic energy around, perfect weekend to be heading to the beach or heading to somewhere with water to really live into that energy. So knowing that the start of this week will be a bit heavier, but just if you get through it, there is that sweetness at the end that'll really come through.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on Jupiter becoming visible, Cass?
Oh, I just had this kind of crazy image. Like, there's a lot of stuff on the internet about, juice or Jupy juice or, sort of thing. So I just had this like vision of arrows flying across the sky. It's been spoken about before that, basically as of Jupiter's entrance into Sagittarius, it kind of hallmarked, the preview of what we can experience for 2019. It's kind of like that astrologically, we're already there. And now that Jupiter is visible, it's like up until this point, it's kind of like it's more about Jupiter's ideas around philosophy or thought processes or beliefs or ideals or these kind of constructs of the mind or the kind of hot air and hot gas aspect of Jupiter. But now that he's visible, there might almost be a bit of a tangible quality to what is actually on offer. What are you saying yes to? There's been so much Jupiter, Mercury, Neptune, Marsy stuff, and that's sort of still in play. But with Jupiter, the kind of head honcho of the show right now, actually rising and making his, he's in his chariot. He's kind of the king of the solar system, alongside of the sun. It's almost like, I've been watching so much kind of medieval type programs lately, and I saw The Gladiator on the weekend. And it's
my gosh.
Who doesn't love watching The Gladiator? But it's almost like sort of, the king of Rome is coming to claim his throne back, and I feel that there's a real power in that. And, if there's something that we can... it might help restore some faith or some optimism that might have been lost for some people this year, particularly if they really did get kind of pounded by those retrogrades. So there is a bit of a buoyancy coming back now that Jupiter's visible. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So, I've been watching The Last Kingdom, Vikings, watch The Gladiator again. So it's all kind of like got that real kind of kingly, following an ideal that is embodied in the king. We do it for Wessex or you do it for Rome, So I feel like that there might be a little bit of a, your own personal sense of meaning and purpose or that person or that idea, not necessarily to blindly follow, but to put your faith into. Which will kind of carry us through into 2019. So,
yeah. Sorry, go Leish.
Well, just when Cass was talking about the arrows flying everywhere, I got that image from the Hunger Games, that I think it was the end of the second last one, you know, where she shoots the arrow up and makes the facade fall away. And all of a sudden, you know, the game became what it was. You know, it wasn't real. It wasn't a real place, and everything just tumbled away. And it feels like, in a way, that's what this is about as well, because Jupiter, Sagittarius, is about truth seeking, and looking beyond for that, following that arrow for something higher. So it is that seeking of wisdom, seeking of the truth, looking past social constructs or those things that we feel like we should be in, and actually following our heart and following our passion towards what we really want to do. You know, that buoyancy and that optimism and that belief and confidence in ourselves that this Jupiter and Sagittarius can offer us is, it's like that platform now is really starting to rise up, you know, almost like that helicopter that came down and saved Katniss, that will take us up into a new place.
Yeah, I love that imagery, Leash, because the idea of the arrows, I mean, you know, both of you have spoken so beautifully. I'm like, wow, this is very visual, which is so fire sign, because fire signs are so visual. They're more oriented to the images. But yeah, that idea of the arrow and pointing higher, and what do you want to aim for? You may not, I mean, it reminds me of that beautiful saying, you know, is it something like aim for the moon, and even if you fall short, you'll land amongst the stars, or something like that? Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to get exactly where you're aiming for, but this is definitely a time to be lifting your gaze higher, you know, shooting higher, stretching yourself. I think I always think of Jupiter transits and Jupiter in Sag more than any other sign, because it's the most yang sign, where Jupiter has some strength or some vitality here. I always think about elastic, you know, stretching. It's like, how far can you go? How wide will this tear? And, you know, you don't know what your limit is yet, and it's a lot further away than what you think it is. And with Jupiter in Sag, it's just encouraging you to really extend yourself a little more. And so that visibility of Jupiter, I think, kicking in this weekend is really interesting. But of course, Mercury coming back into Sag, I think that's helpful for Jupiter in terms of, like, the relationship between Jupiter and Mercury, I see is like Jupiter is more of a royal figure or a senior, you know, wise figure, and Mercury is more like the page or the assistant scurrying around. Like the king's hand, so to speak. Yeah, handling the details, doing the research. You know, the Mercury works to help kind of put the pieces together of some of the conceptual, visionary things that Jupiter is working for. So that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds as Mercury wraps up his tour through Sagittarius.
Because, you know, we're using this analogy of arrows, etc., you know, even when you are doing archery, or even if you are shooting a weapon like a rifle or what have you, you actually have to shoot higher than your target. You have to aim higher than your target, because that arc of the bullet or the arc of the bow is going to, you know, dip down a little bit. And so even if you don't think you can, you know, achieve your 10 kilos of weight loss, or, you know, your bake savings, or whatever it is that the Jupiter piece means for you, it is a little bit kind of like, you know, as you said, aim for the moon, but you might hit the stars. And that's still, that consolation prize is still pretty sweet. And I think that's where the quest and the courage that you really do need in order to, you know, whether it's speak your truth or have your beliefs and allow them to be heard, getting on your soapbox or whatever, it does, you know, it does invite you to go towards that broader horizon or aim higher than what you actually think you can achieve.
And it's true, Cass, because I love the way you put that, because what it makes me think is, and what you were saying too, Kel, about that stretch and that pull, because when Jupiter moves into Capricorn at the end of 2019 and gets ready for all that solidifying and foundational astrology of 2020, you know, what we can, if we can stretch ourselves and grow ourselves, we'll be able to really master some amazing things in 2020. So it's almost like those adventures that we're going to go on, and those things we're going to try out and experiment with and push out the edges of ourselves with will really pay off if we do the work towards the right things.
Yeah, getting a little bit of extra slack on the bone for 2020 might be necessary.
Yes. Yeah, definitely enjoy the jupe, you know, kind of juices flowing while we have Jupiter and Sag, because it's a very different landscape as we turn the corner into 2020. But plenty of time to talk about such things. There is you know, a whole year ahead of us. I mean, this week, I noticed this when I was looking at like my month ahead layout. This is a little bit more of a mellow week. There just isn't as many astrological aspects happening. We do have what I'm calling the Pisces puddle pile up at the end of the week.
I love that, Kel.
And I can't take...
That's a hashtag.
Yeah, I can't take credit for the Pisces puddle because it's come out of the NORWAC conference in Seattle, where I'm there with Mark Jones, who's a dear astrology friend of mine who also has quite the splash of Pisces in his chart. And the two of us, and there must have been a third person that...
it was Kira.
Maybe it was Kira. I'm not sure it was Kira because she doesn't have a huge amount of Pisces.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know. It just came from that conference where we were just doing a typical Pisces kind of pile up where everybody's just like, you know, connecting and, you know, really bonding in that very soulful sort of Piscean way. But I'm thinking about that every month at the moment when the moon is coming into Pisces and meeting Mars and Neptune, because it feels like this Pisces puddle where, you know, that desire to escape or to lay low or to tune out or to check out, but in a really kind of nourishing way, is coming through. So I thought it was interesting, you know, 14th, 15th, that's coming through this week, just depending on exactly where you are. So it's nice that it's running into the weekend because it's very much a getting off the clock, not being on a schedule type of vibe.
Yeah.
It might be that sort of first... I think that's when school winds up for a lot of the kids. So it'll be a bit of a, you know, the dip into the holiday season, that wind down and relax and escape.
Great for the kids, not so great for the parents. The parents will probably be disappearing into a wine bottle that afternoon. Oh my God, first day of school holidays. No, I shouldn't say that because I love the school holidays and I love what comes along with that. You know, it's summer in a way that there is no set agenda. We don't have to get out the door and get to school every morning. We don't have to get to pick up by 3 o'clock. It's like things are a lot more flexible and movable and flowy. So it seems like it's perfect that it's actually going to be kicked off with that Pisces puddle. And I also love that day the moon is going to not only trine Venus, but it's going to square Jupiter. And these guys can't see each other at the moment because they're in those two signs next to each other. But it almost feels like the moon kind of links them so they can, these two beautiful benefics can go, oh, hey, there you are. I haven't seen you in a while. And then, you know, be ready for when Jupiter comes in and comes into Sag in early January, and then that lovely conjunction that will happen later on in January between the two. So it's like, I feel like there will be a bit of a kiss from the two benefics on that Friday afternoon that will give us a sense of what might be happening on the 21st, 22nd of January when those two come up and join each other.
Yeah, that's lovely, Leash. I really like that idea of, parents will be disappearing into the, you know, the drinks or taking the kids down to the beach or what have you. It's kind of a nice mid-month pause too, because I think it's a chance for everyone to just tune out, maybe check in spiritually. I think that's one of the most nourishing things to do with so many Pisces planets going on. Yeah.
So you're saying do yoga rather than pick up the wine bottle, Kel?
Well, I mean, you know, I always
upper body flexibility is very important too, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm always in consults trying to say, like, there's a whole spectrum of Neptunian choices, you know, it's a buffet of escapism, you know, and some of it's more nourishing and some of it's not. But, you know, there are times that just call for, you know, the wine and chocolate or the mindless TV, you know. So it'll just depend, I think, where people are at. as they come through. But, you know, the moon is growing this week. We've got a waxing moon all week, which I think is lovely. So it is that sense of things are building. We'll have a lot to talk about in our video for next week, or our podcast show for next week, because there is a big full moon coming then. But yeah, this is kind of quite a week. I mean, what do you guys normally experience, like, life as being quieter, or do you find sometimes these less active astrological weeks are busier in real life because you're kind of getting on with stuff?
Well, I know what, like, I know what's on my own personal schedule for this week.
Yep.
So it's sort of kind of like, it's going to be super, super busy, because then I'll be taking about 10 days off. So it'll just be trying to wind up everything as much as possible prior. So it's going to be crazy busy.
Okay.
How about you, Alicia?
Same. You know, we've got Christmas carols and farewell end of year parties, but I think it's a great question, Kel. And for me, it's very much about what's going on in the background, and whether it's a busy week or not, it just feels like there won't be as much opposition or as much that's pulling me away into different things. So yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to that weekend, even though it's going to be a really busy one with markets for us. But yeah, it'll be really, it'll feel nice. It'll have a lovely vibe to it. So hopefully people will be out and about and enjoying themselves. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go Cass.
No, you're right. You can do it.
What about you,
I was
Kel?
just going to say, I've got a much busier week the week before, and I do have, and then this week, you know, it's still a full week. I've got, you know, all my client sessions for December already booked out, but it's a little bit busier the week before, and just a little bit more, nicely paced, if you like, this week. So I thought that was interesting that the skies calmed down a little bit, but I always know when I have some more gaps in my weekly schedule, I end up working on other projects. So sometimes it ends up being busier, even though it doesn't look that way going into it. So yeah, I was just curious how that might be showing up for you girls.
Yeah, and I like how you said it, Alicia. You know, when the skies are a little bit calmer, the things that are in the background can kind of come into the foreground a little bit. So it might be, as work maybe slows down a little bit, it might be where you can slip in that catch up with somebody or that phone call with somebody. Mercury will be back in Sag, so there will be, that opportunity for more talking and more connecting in that, in the Jupiterian type of nature. So yeah. And I often find, like, for me personally, when the skies are quiet, it kind of leads me into this false sense of security, because then I kind of like can, just cruise along, because the energy isn't there. And then, usually then I have the, oh shit moment, and then it kind of goes crazy again. So I've kind of learned over the years to not get too complacent when you have those quieter weeks.
Yeah, interesting.
I guess that's what we can find out how it played out for us all next week, no doubt.
Yeah, we can. But I find something really similar, that when the planets kind of calm down, things that have been neglected or just sitting in the background, it's like they press forward, because they know that you're available, basically. So so it'll be a week of maybe attending to some of that stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I also feel like, the shadow lead up to this Mercury retrograde was full on. So I do think that there may still, even though Mercury has gone direct, I'm curious to see whether or not there will still be that hangover from that retrograde into this week and just beyond, until it gets out of its shadow the week after. So in our next podcast. So yeah, I'm just, I'm mindful of keeping a tune on that, because for me, that Mercury retrograde pretty much started as soon as it went into its shadow. Just to explain to people what Mercury shadow is as compared to a retrograde, it's, because Mercury travels over a portion of the sky and then travels back over it and then back over it again. In those times where he's in that pain, even though he's not going backwards, there's still that feeling of being linked into that retrograde period, and there's still that feeling of, what's tied up in it, what the themes of that whole thing are playing out, even when Mercury's direct in that particular portion of the sky. Any clarity you girls can add to that?
Yeah, you might just find that the themes, topics, stuff that kind of started in the beginning of November might need to be revisited this week. While it's quieter, there's not a lot going on, you might be going back to those details or back to that, whatever had happened. You know, if you could cast your mind back to sort of the 1st of November, you know, when Mercury first went into Sag, it's back there now. So there is that potential to revisit or tie up those loose ends or get that second bite of the cherry, so to speak. Revisit those conversations that you didn't get to have. So,
yep. Or projects that went haywire.
Or just that, okay, I've got a quiet week. I'm just going to do everything I can possible before, you know. So, I mean, I don't know what it's like for you in Canada, Kel, but you know what it's like here in Oz. We just kind of, it's a real massive wind down.
Yeah, it is. It's similar here. The difference in North America is that because it's not leading into the summer holiday, it's not as big a break. Even like, I don't think the States has Boxing Day. They just have Christmas Day. And in the States, Thanksgiving is the much bigger holiday. So it's not as big in the States. Canada still has the Boxing Day thing, but it's more of like you've got a week, like, you know, most people have maybe a few days off. I mean, my husband works for the public education system, so they have like a 2-week shutdown, but then by early January everybody goes back to work. So it's not the same as in Australia where like everything's shut down in January. So when I first came here, I was like, oh, we've only got a week and then we're back to work kind of thing. So that's a little bit different, but there is still this feeling, and I don't know whether it's because I've like brought that Australian energy with me, but there's still for me a real feeling of like getting things done, end of the calendar year, you know, the last working day for the year, the 21st, which we'll talk about next week. I mean, that's the day of the solstice, you know, 21st, 22nd. I think the solstice is the 22nd in Australia. So it's that idea. I really feel that solstice energy as like a pivot point. What do you need to wind down so that you can refocus for the next 6 months? And, you know, as we're getting close to that now, it is that real feeling of, under the crunch, under the pump, get it done.
Winding.
I used to always explain to my friends in the UK when I lived in London that, you know, imagine putting May Day, which is that holiday right at the end of May where everyone goes a bit crazy because the weather's hot, and then marry that in with Christmas and all the celebrations there. Then you get a feeling of what that week and Christmas is like in Australia, you know, because it's kind of marrying that beginning of summer and, you know, just that joy and that love of getting outdoors and being with the sun on your skin, along with the crazy that is Christmas.
100%.
That's the thing. Pretty much apart from the retail or hospitality sector, don't expect to get anything done until at least end of January.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. So a little bit of a mellow week for people, you know, a couple of things happening astrologically. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests. Any final thoughts or comments from you gals? Anything you've got coming up that you want to promote before we finish today's episode?
Well, on the 15th in the US, here in Australia, I'm doing a webinar for the Fresh Voices in Astrology, all about transits and progressions. So you might recall we did a big summit back in July, which I was part of, and I'm doing a webinar again on the 16th. So if you're wanting to look how to sort of marry, I guess, your internal progression through life, your internal clock, come and join us, and you can sign up for that at freshvoicesinAstrology.com.
Excellent. Thanks, Kath. What about you, Leish?
That week I'm launching a new 7-week course. Now, it's not so much astrology. This is more along the lines of personal development. And it's how to kind of work with those patterns, those behaviors that we have in ourselves that are, you know, that kind of control us and we don't want them to anymore, you know, those knee-jerk reactions we have. So, yeah, I will be launching that. It won't start until January, but I'll be opening up. It will be limited numbers. I'm only taking 7 so that I can work with people really intimately. But yeah, I'll be opening that up on my website the middle of that week. So yeah.
Excellent. And I just realized that by the time this comes out, I will have details about when I'm teaching in Sydney next February. So February 2019, I will be in Australia doing some astrology teaching. And I don't actually know what that'll look like yet as we're recording this, but by the time this comes live and you gals and whoever's listening at home, I'll have some details about a couple of live events in Sydney. So they'll be on my homepage at that point in time, which will be good. So, well, this has been great. Thank you to everyone who is listening and following along at home. We really appreciate all the support and the wonderful feedback that you guys have been sending in. If you are enjoying the show, we would really love it if you could subscribe, and if you feel so inclined, even leave a comment or a rating for us, especially on iTunes. That just helps keep us high enough in the rankings of astrology podcasts that other people can find our show, which we would really appreciate that. So you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and we're also on YouTube as well. So whatever your preferred method is, we'd love it if you could subscribe and follow along. We drop a new episode every week, and we look forward to sharing more astrology with you guys in the weeks ahead.
Just one quick thing, Kel. I've had a few people ask me, if you're listening to it on iTunes and you want to leave a comment or ask a question, go and do it on our social media pages.
Okay.
On Facebook, because there is nowhere to do that on iTunes. So I know confusing for people. I think you can do it on SoundCloud as well. But yeah, find one of us on social media or even in the YouTube, our water trio. It's just called the Water Trio in YouTube, and you'll be able to leave comments under the video there. We'd love to have any questions that you might have, and we can answer them in our next episode.
Yes, and we'll be getting a little webpage soon, but we'll worry about that when Mercury is direct.
Yes, 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
In focused Capricorn, maybe.
Yeah, I'm actually, there are things that I am consciously saving for Mercury and Capricorn.
I think so too.
You know, I just need a little bit of that serious focus. But anyway, we digress, which we never do. We never digress or go on tangents.
I have to say, girls, I'm just going to put it out there. When we talked about doing this podcast for ages, we were a bit worried that we would not stay as focused as we have been. So I'm just going to say I'm really proud of us.
Yes.
That we're doing a good job as far as staying focused for us.
That's true. Yes, we are. We do have very marathon tangents. And this is only a very tip of the iceberg of what could happen, but we shall sign off now and look forward to more astro and life chats next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. See you then. Bye.